You know, just once I'd like to talk about a game that's just really good. 10 out of 10, Game of the Year, second coming of Michael Jackson, all that shit. But no, instead I've got a game that splits fan opinion, that's maybe not what people expected, maybe even a little overhyped. Ladies and gentlemen, Hyrule Warriors. The answer to a question not many people were asking, Hyrule Warriors is a crossover between Legend of Zelda and Tecmo Koei's Dynasty Warriors. Well, I say crossover, let's just call it a Dynasty Warriors game with Legend of Zelda characters. You spend the vast majority of the game slicing your way through literally thousands of enemies in order to gain control over the battlefield through the possession of outposts and keeps. There's usually some objective involving defeating an enemy commander or capturing a certain number of keeps, that sort of thing. And all of that perfectly summarises the Dynasty Warriors game, let alone Hyrule Warriors. The Legend of Zelda influence on the gameplay isn't all that distinctive, save for the use of a couple staple Zelda items, and using the no longer triangular boobed Great Fairy to get an advantage on the battlefield. Oh, and the giant bosses, can't forget those. Pretty much everything else, from the linear gameplay to the distinct lack of puzzles, is all very Dynasty Warriors and very un-Zelda. But hey, that's okay, you're smacking people around as whatever Zelda character you want, of the playable roster you're given. Which brings me nicely to the story. The story is perhaps unsurprisingly centered on the Zelda part of the crossover, otherwise what's the point of having Zelda characters? It all starts with Zelda playing her harp until she's interrupted by a rampaging torrent of cough syrup that engulfs her. End of game. Nah, it's actually a dream, but Zelda still decides to do something about it and looks for a hero, who just happens to be the one soldier who looks nothing like the rest of them, and a little bit like that Link guy who's been in a few Zelda games. Maybe he's got a bit of experience with the whole saving the world thing. And at the risk of sounding like I'm dumbing it down, that's kind of it really. I mean, Zelda disappears after the first battle and we're introduced to the bad person, but it pretty much follows the usual Zelda story formula, even going so far as to resurrect that one person who I'm sure you know. I'd personally like to know why they tried to play Sheik off as a character who is mysterious and ambiguous, when anyone who's played Ocarina of Time or Super Smash Bros. Melee or Brawl, three of the biggest games of all time, knows exactly where Zelda went. The most variety we ever get in both story and chapter progression is where it splits off into three separate pathways about halfway through, which acts as a welcome change of pace if only to introduce some extra characters. Though to be honest here, what kind of horrendous monster watches trailers for Hyrule Warriors and buys it for the story? I'd like to meet that person. They probably spend their time licking windows or something. So, why would you buy Hyrule Warriors? What is really the main draw of this game? Well, if you're a Zelda fan who's played and replayed every game in the series, this was made with you in mind. There's a whole load of little references to Zelda games, both modern and classic, and finding them is guaranteed to put a smile on your face at some point. There's also a bit of a draw from the Dynasty Warriors crowd, who haven't had a new game for a year and a half, as it's basically a fully fledged Warriors game. But other than that, yeah. Don't get me wrong, I love the shit out of this game. Story mode never got all that tiresome, the gameplay personally feels very self-indulging, and adventure mode has so much goddamn substance that it made me cry a little. But I'm a big Zelda fan, in case you haven't realised that already. The main problem with Hyrule Warriors is that it relies a little too heavily on being a love letter to fans. Take it from the standpoint that you've never played a Zelda game before. You've got all these characters without backstories doing things you can't really explain in environments you've never seen before. You might as well just buy a Dynasty Warriors game. There's also the fact that it helps to understand exactly what Hyrule Warriors is. It is a crossover between two very different franchises. It is an awful lot of fun. It is not the new Zelda game for the Wii U that people are waiting for. In fact, it is not really a Zelda game. There's a reason why it's called Hyrule Warriors instead of Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors. And I think this leads to another issue, expectation. You have to play this game with the knowledge that you're playing a Dynasty Warriors game with Legend of Zelda skins and music. Don't expect any puzzles, don't expect much in the way of exploring any sort of overworld. In fact, don't expect the gameplay to get any more complex than pressing two buttons to dish out some rather repetitive combos. If you don't like Dynasty Warriors, stay as far away as you can, because this will be like a plague for you. But there's still fun to be had here. Like I said, sending enemies flying is incredibly empowering and in short bursts a ton of fun. Sure, it'll get boring if you spend too long playing it, but so will most things. I've been excited for a game where you feel this powerful controlling Link since the end of Skyward Sword, and as long as you manage your expectations, you'll have a lot of fun with this one. It's dead simple to play with fan service of every variety wherever you go. It's got its problems, but that's mostly with the Dynasty Warriors formula it's built on. I definitely recommend this, whether you're a Zelda fan or if you just want something relatively mindless to spend your time on. This has been rabbidluigi, and do I just scores on this channel? Like, something out of something else? Let me get back to you on that one.
8 out of 10.